I woke up from a deep sleep of a woman screaming loudly for help, and suddenly her voice stopped and a man was screaming outside our house. I was frozen with fear. I couldn't move on my bed. The sound was so horrible, and then a loud screeching sound came from the car's tires and sped off into the distance. The woman was still screaming. When I finally could again, I tried to wake up and told my parents what I heard, and they said, "I had a bad dream." A few days or a week later, a woman was murdered in a farm a few kilometers from our house. Not only the murder, rape, and beating, but also his naked and beaten body was next to the car that was burnt inside. I was 11 years old then. However, before the woman was found, I was homesick. I heard gunshots. I heard approaching. I felt scared. I just sat there for a long time wondering what and why. I was alone at home, and I didn't know what to do. We lived in a village, so there were about 15 to 20 houses every 2 to 10 miles. Down the block was a community hall. Later that day, the village was full of police cars and news. The man who killed the woman shot himself in the bathroom of our community hall. This was the voice I had heard. For most of my life, I felt that his death was my fault and that I could have prevented it. I had many nightmares about that experience. In my mid-30s, I'm taking care of my aunt's house alone, doing art until late at night, and I hear the same scream, a woman screaming, struggling, and the voice is muffled, and the man immediately remembered my childhood and heard that the woman was dying. But then I thought, not this time. So I grabbed my steel fire stick and opened the back door that had the motion-activated light. The light turned on and illuminated the alley, and from the darkness, I saw a bloody woman who ran towards me and screamed. I pulled out of the way for him to go in, and there was a boy standing in the alley staring at me with a ring on his face. He shouted at me to close the door, or he would kill us both. But I didn't listen to him. He didn't move and just stared. And we called 911. She told me that he was her ex-boyfriend and he broke into her house and beat her in her bed. The man pulled her face down, put his hands in her mouth, intended to kill him. He told him this sentence himself. But when I opened the door and the light came out and shocked him, he dropped his hand on his face and ran away. The police arrived fairly quickly and followed him. An ambulance attended to him. He had large cuts on his face and was bleeding profusely. They searched but could not find the man until about 2 weeks later, when they found his body at the bottom of a cliff. About a month later, the woman called me and thanked me for opening the door. She told me I saved her life. She thought that was it. He said that when he saw the light of the alley and saw me, he ran towards me to escape from him. He was only 23 years old at that time. He had a long life left. I shudder to think what would have happened if I had stood there frozen. Since then, I have been presented with several opportunities to help women from violent men. And after these 2 experiences, I did not hesitate. There have been several others almost as horrifying before my eyes happened. I felt no choice and acted without thinking, with a positive outcome each time. I am not willing to let another woman die like this. But this is one of the scariest experiences of my childhood, which fortunately was one of the bravest experiences of my adult life. When I was 11, my mother said she had a headache. He went to lie down to see if it would get better. About 45 minutes later, I went to her room to see if she would like a cup of tea to calm her down. He was lying on his side. When I approached the bed, I saw blood all over his pillow and blood coming from his nose. "Kelly, get one." "I can't move," Mom whispered. I ran down the stairs, down the road, and angrily slammed my cousin's front door. He didn't answer. So I climbed up the window of the living room and hurriedly woke him up. I have never seen anyone move so fast. We left his house and reached our house. He helped the mother into a semi-sitting position. He called for an ambulance. My father came home from university just as the ambulance arrived. At this moment, the mother had blood in her mouth. They hurriedly put the mother in an ambulance and quickly drove away. He underwent surgery immediately that night. They discovered that he had a brain aneurysm and that it had burst. The blood happened because his brain was starting to sink. During surgery to remove the aneurysm, he suffered a massive stroke and went into a coma. He was in a coma for 4 months. When he regained consciousness, they discovered that he was paralyzed on his left side and had other disabilities. After 4 years, he was finally allowed to live at home. I'm still counting my lucky stars that I happened to check him out that night. If I hadn't done that, he probably would have died.